This is Walt Kasmir again, your favorite podcast host of Critical Conversations. If you're looking for entertainment and gossip and nonsense, you might want to find another channel, another podcast. We are here talking about relevant issues that need to be discussed. And today I am excited to be able to present to you one of the most dynamic solopreneurs, coaches on this side of the Western Hemisphere. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Dr. Oliver Reid, the writing coach. Dr. Oliver Reid is a multi-bestselling and award-winning author, motivational speaker, founder and president of I Am a Solution consulting firm, a human development and organization providing specialized relationship consulting and coaching services. He's known as the writing coach. He uses a cutting-edge writing coaching technique to help entrepreneurs, speakers, and coaches while leading them to lead their highest potential. Not only does he have a innovative writing coaching technique, he is the creator of the revolutionary interactive card game for singles and couples called The Interview. Within the past 7 years, Dr. Reid has published 20 best-selling books, has contributed to 10 anthologies, and has won multiple awards for his literary work, including a 2016 IALA Distinction of Excellence Legendary Honoree and the NAACP 2016-17 Black Men Image Award. Dr. Reid has been featured on HuffPost, Black Enterprise, ABC, CBS, Fox, NBC, and other international outlets. So needless to say, I am bringing you a well-qualified, prolific author, coach, philanthropist. He's a boss, as the young people would say. So, my brother, tell the people how you became Dr. Oliver T. Reid, the writing coach.
Well, thank you so much, Walt, for having me on. I feel really special after hearing you introduce me in such a way. I'm humbled to be among greatness, and I love what you're doing. How I became the writing coach was really I had so much material in my life, so many different things that had occurred throughout my childhood, like abuse and rejection and molestation and all those kind of hidden secrets. And for a long time, writing was just, a place where I ran to. It was almost like what's my escapism, so to speak. I was able to hide myself with the power of the pen and paper. I was able to, back then we didn't have the laptops and Macs and all those mobile devices that we have now. So I had a number 2 pencil and whatever you call those papers with the lines in it that when you erase, you kind of take the paper with you, kind of thing. And I just started writing. And for years, it was my escapism, going through a lot of my life, a lot of pain, a lot of trauma. As I got older, it kind of transferred with me. And I was always writing when I was a kid, just kind of, school winning contests. But after I got through some levels of life, I set out to do my first book. And it took me 10 years to get my first book done because I was stuck in fitna. You might can't see my shirt, but it says, get your book out of fitna, right? But basically, fitna is that urban term that says, well, I'm getting ready to. We would say it in the South all the time. Like, I'm fitting to go to the store. When you going to go? I'm fitting to get this job. When you going to get it? It's always this term. So I was killing stages, kind of rocking, internationally, doing kind of stuff, speaking and doing ministry and all these different things. And people ask me, hey, where's your book? And I would give them that look like I'm finna, get it done. And so from there, after my first book, went through some changes, didn't produce what I needed to do. I said to myself, hey, God, if you get me through this particular situation, I'm going to help everybody else. So that's how I stumbled in becoming the writing coach, based on the trauma of even book writing, based on the things that I experienced. I became what I needed in the first place. So that's when I put myself as Dr. Oliver T. Reid, the writing coach.
fascinating story about how this manifested. So you're obviously, by your title, you're Dr. Oliver T. Reid. So everyone who gets a doctorate has to do an exorbitant amount of writing. But how did you become the writing coach? How did that happen, and how was that relevant in today's economy?
Yes, it became a fact where I was like, okay, now that I had achieved some success, my book went to bestsellers. I was actually still speaking and helping people. People started coming to me and they started asking me, well, how do you do this? You know, and I was just like showing them and just kind of just giving them free tips and giving them all this secret sauce. Like some of you watching this right now, like just giving people stuff that I didn't really see my value at first. But you know, what we do regular a lot of times, what we do without, you know, in our passion and sometimes even without a whole lot of effort is kind of, you know, mundane to us, but it's magnificent to someone else. And so from that standpoint, I kind of started helping and started coaching, but I wasn't quite monetizing it like I needed to
Ah,
because I was just giving it away until I
mhm.
realized the value within. And when I started realizing the value of the writing, you said something and asked a question about how relevant it is in the economy. Well, I ghostwrite, I coach, I do all of that. And inside of it, it's very absorbent. You know, you can kind of see lucrative, you can kind of see that there's really no cap on what I do. You know, really no cap on becoming a professional writer. You can blog, you can write for other people, you can ghostwrite, you can publish, you can do all those different things that will bring income and also exposure. So I was able to capitalize in my passion, something I love and already do, and was actually saying, hey, now I can put the skills and the concepts and create this whole platform to help other people get their books out of their head onto the pages.
And you mentioned your platform um, is beautifully laid out on your website. Tell the people a little bit more about your proprietary writing coaching system.
Yes, I specialize in something that I always try to take, you know, these little colloquialisms like you see right now. I have, you know, on my shirt, take the book out of fit. Now, I always try to acronym things. And from that standpoint of using an acronym, MILK came to mind because as a kid, as we grew up and we did our milk writing system, it was one of those things where I could basically um, look towards, even when as a young kid, looking to see on the back of that milk carton. You know what I mean? Like on the back of that milk box. It was one of those things where you would see the missing children, right? When I was
Mm.
growing up. And a lot of people, I realized, Walt, their book is missing. Their true story is missing. And so milk gave me the whole connotation. Remember back in the day, drink your milk, milk does the body good, you know, and then it started to be kind of, you know, you remember that saying, the commercial, you got milk, right? And then it started to be also a negative colloquialism where people would say, hey, that person is milking it. You know what I mean? She is really milking it. He is really milking it. Well, shouldn't we do that to every story, our story in life? We should really milk that story because at the end of the day, that is what's powerful about us is our unique and individualized story. So I took those four letters and I created a system around that. M is for messaging, which every book needs to have a message and stay on beat. If I would say, hey, can you hear me now? You would think about Verizon. If I say, have it your way, you would think about Burger King. It's all
Sure,
about the
yeah.
messaging. So your story needs to have a message from start to finish. I is for the implementation. Many people have a great message, but they don't implement or execute. And there's so many people I run into every day. I'm going to write a book. It's been 10 years later. I'm going to get this thing done. Still hasn't happened. So the I is implementation. So I teach my clients how to implement, how to execute. When we move from execution to the L in milk, that is the linking it all together. Now that you have the message, now that you're executing, how do you make your message, your implementation flow to every area of your life? I teach people instead of writing a book, become the book you want to write. Let me say that again. Instead of writing the book, become the book, embrace who you are, right? Because then it begins to be real and relevant. I see so many people who write a book, but they don't know what they really want to do, really want to, you know, attract. And so I really teach you how to really become that book and link it all together, right? From videos to audio to being on stage to speaking it, becoming that book. And then K is knowledge. We know that people will pay you for the knowledge or your experience. What people don't understand, Walt, when you're talking about being, the doctor title, you have to do a dissertation, you got to defend it. You go through a whole lot of money and processes to get certain degrees in life, right? And when you get those degrees, people don't pay you or want to pay you for the process. So you really, when you charge or having them invest in themselves, is based on the process that you went through. So I touch bases with the clients and tell them, hey, you need to be able to charge according to the process that you've been through and your level of expertise. So together you have that milk writing system.
Now that you succinctly described that, you made it sound definitely like something that people should be wanting to invest in to actually get what that the message that they have, their greatness for the world, get it clarified and get it out. And it sounds comprehensive. I mean, it's not just like you're saying, hey, whenever you give me the manuscript, I'll edit and we'll publish, and that's the end of it. But what you're describing to me is a total system.
Definitely, it is definitely systematic.
That sounds like something anyone who thought that they might want to write a book needs to invest in. Now, tell me, I know you and Kelly Cole have been doing this for several years now. Can you give us some examples about how people just kind of had a fuzzy idea about the book and how you were actually able to help them use your milk system and actually help them write a book in 30 days, like you said on your promo material?
Yes, it's one of those things that we even had some people work with people that did it in a weekend, that did it in 72 hours. I wrote a book in 2 weeks. I actually wrote a book in a couple of days. And I've taken entrepreneurs, speakers, and coaches to, undisclosed location and work with them to actually get it done. One of the biggest things that people really have as a barrier is that their story doesn't matter. It's really the validation that they're seeking. Most people come to us and they're like, they come in and they're like, hey, I'm not sure my story matters, because everybody has a story about abuse. Everybody has a story about what they went through in life and business and marriage, whatever. And I always tell them that there's always a secret sauce. And I put it this way, well, McDonald's is not fighting with Ruth Chris over their sauce, right? At the end of the day, they're going to make their money. They both serve cow, they both serve beef. But at the end of the day, you can't pull up at McDonald's and say, I want a filet mignon. They're going to say, hey, we don't sell that here. Right. But that don't mean that they're shutting down the restaurants. And so I tell people, why shut down your story? Because it's similar to somebody else. What separates yours from theirs is the secret sauce.
Now that's a jewel right there. Now repeat that again, just in case people weren't paying attention when you dropped that jewel on them.
Yeah, sometimes we shut down our story, but you don't see McDonald's shutting down because Ruth Chris is open. Or you don't see Ruth Chris shutting down because McDonald's is open. They both sell similar things, but they also sell separate things, and they all have a different sauce.
Nice. I know I have thought that myself. I was like, hey, man, there's thousands of people out there writing on elder care, on end of life issues and grief and all the things in my space. But and my wife, she's like, hey, nobody has your story.
Yes.
And I can definitely see that as a major stumbling block that you can help them overcome. All right.
Yes.
Without giving away the secret sauce, give us a hint of what that might look like, or one of the techniques where you can take someone with a fuzzy idea and they have a manuscript ready to publish in 30 days.
Yes, really getting them to open up to really embrace who they are. The biggest thing is about confidence. And the really thing is, moving forward and not try to edit it. One of the things we do a lot of times in this human nature is self-preservation, right? We always want to make sure we're okay. But I really say, okay, you're going to be okay. Let's drop this into a system. Let's drop it into a format. Let's drop it into a document, get it out of your head onto the pages. And then we can go back, right? And look at how we want to synchronize in the order and put it in relevance, wherever we want to put it. But at the end of the day, get it out of your head. Because as long as you're carrying it around and fitting it's going to always be there. So one of the things we do is just, hey, enhance your story. Be able to say, hey, let's drop it out, let's get it going, and let's get it started. And so one of the things we really specialize in doing when I really meet a client is I take them through a system of specific questions that I ask, right, to really get them to open up and get them to see and get them to feel relaxed and feel comfortable. And during the journey, we know that things are going to come up. The other thing I always tell them that you are a book, you're not writing a book. So that's a jewel dropper. That's something that you want to write down. If you're watching that, you are not just writing a book, you are a book. Become the book you want to write, which means that it's always going to be another chapter in you until the day you go home, right? You to exit this earth, there will always be another story in you. So sometimes people want to come up with this complete. What was hindering me, Walt, was I thought I had to tell my whole story in this 180 pages. I thought that I had to give everything inside of this one particular book. Instead of breaking it down into volumes, we're going to break it down into your life quarters. If you're an investor, you got first, second, third, fourth quarters. You can do great in the first, but you can, struggle in the third. But it's all a part of your life. So the biggest thing I tell people to do is just get it out. And the other thing I tell them is this: you don't have to finish to be finished. Say that again. I think that you get that. You don't have to finish to be finished.
Nice, nice. Now, for the people that are on the fence that may be watching or listening, um, can you? I don't know if you can drop names of any of the clients that have actually started from a fuzzy idea and timid about actually doing this to somebody that
Mhm.
followed your coaching and produced a book in 30 days, what the title of it is, and follow up with part two of the most important thing that if they don't know they will find out is how to effectively market that book.
Yes, I always start. One of the people that I admire in my case study was somebody that's amazing. And I want to break the myth before I get into answering your question. One of the things that people feel and they kind of weigh in on, they think, oh, because you're writing and you can write, that means you have a book. Well, this particular case study was she was writing. It wasn't a problem about whether she was writing or not. She had journals full of notes, journals full of content. It wasn't the content, and content alone will not produce a book. Some people think I got plenty of content, I can do a book. But until you get to write a book and really understand what that means, you can have plenty of content. She was actually killing stage walk. She was killing stages and had 99 paid speaking engagements before COVID hit. She had already had 99 paid speaking engagements. Now, speakers and coaches will really get ecstatic about
Wow.
paid speaking engagements, but she didn't have a book. So she
Uh,
was actually losing money and losing the ability to get in rooms that she was not in to repurpose herself, all because she didn't have a book. Now, I want to stop real quick right there. Every person on planet Earth that's really worth their salt in the coaching field, entrepreneurial field, they have one thing in common. All of them will produce a book in their life or not books. For example, TD Jakes is on top of his game right now for a long time, but he still just wrote a New York best-selling book again. Why? Why is he continuing writing books? Because he is writing books to kind of reintroduce himself. Because as popular as he is, there's still people that do not know him, right? So if he writes the book, he now gets into a different lens, different layer, different environment that he wasn't in before. All right. So my biggest thing, let's go back to the case study. Her name is Marquita Johnson. Right, we worked on her with her. She's one of my case studies in my online course. She wrote the book in under 30 days. Look at this. Released it before it was out. I showed her, going to your marketing question, I showed her how to market the book and release it before it was printed and make revenue back at an engagement she had in Hawaii. Now that's big. The book wasn't out, but she was able to still create income at a keynote that she was speaking at a therapeutic conference. She's a therapist, holistic conference, and bring revenue for the book that she was writing before it was out. So it's all about getting in the right system, all about being around the right coach. She had the material, she had the content, but I showed her the system and how to create it. And her name of her book is called B2, the B2 Vitamin, right? Basically, she was talking about the relationship vitamin. So basically, she was talking about the B's in the relationships. And she was able to release that. She's a millennial dating coach. She's awesome. And she was able to bring a new strategy a new form of now increasing her awareness by one simple book that she wrote in 30 days or less.
Now that's a jewel. I'm sure that people will download this once we get this out and listen to that and watch this over and over to really digest that. One book was the tipping point.
Yeah.
And so that one book combined with the marketing and having something relevant to say now, a lot of people put out
Definitely.
books that aren't really worth the paper they were written on. But this sounds intriguing. I mean, I had an idea about what you guys were doing, but the more I hear about this, it sounds more and more like it is revolutionary, because I don't think any other publisher is really giving this much and pouring into the writers this much.
Yeah.
They can either write or and produce, or they can't. If they can't, they move on, or they take they take their fee and that's it. And then they go away without having the book and the benefits. That's information for me to re-embrace myself. Now, I could talk about this stuff all day long, but I want to move on to the next question, the next topic. Now, you talked about wanting to discuss writing and healing. So, in what aspect of healing and writing, how are you combining these two?
You really, oh my goodness, like I said earlier, from a standpoint is what, from a standpoint of how I talked about the trauma that I experienced as a kid, and being able to take that trauma and put it in a book, it has been life-changing for me. And not only for me, as I was documenting how I processed my trauma, other individuals were going through the same thing and needed a guide or needed a solution that wouldn't have ever met me. I'm a suicide survivor. In 1995, I tried to commit suicide. So a lot of stuff I write is real relevant and it talks about healing. Now, if I didn't document that, somebody else wouldn't have actually had a way to say that I can face my healing and I can face my struggles. I can face what I went through. I can't count the many times, Walt, people have inboxed me from other countries, inboxed me from other states and say, I read your book. I don't know how they got it. They probably, I didn't know them, but they were able to get a piece of literature that I wrote. So therapy and healing and writing is amazing. I talked a little bit about my case study. Well, her and I, she's a licensed clinical therapist, brain spotting expert, amazing in her field, getting a doctorate in everything inside of that whole genre of helping people and counseling. We have teamed up to provide something called Pain the Pages, a therapeutic writing initiative that's going to be 8 weeks long to show people how to, guess what? This is powerful. Not only write the book, it's not about writing the book. It's about being able to therapeutically write and journal, and not just writing from a literary pencil and pen, but maybe you may video log your journey, or maybe you may speak it out, or maybe you may write it out. But the powerful part is I'm learning that the more you can find outlets to put the things down so that you can see it. Sometimes we feel it, well, but when we write, we can actually see it and read it. And that helps a lot with even the hand-eye coordination or how we feel and releasing endorphins and different things in our brains. All those different things. As we see it and get past it and move on. A lot of people just writing things down can move on, right? You may want to write that letter to that deceased person that you didn't have a last conversation with.
Yeah.
There's so many people that were like myself. My father was snatched from me. He was snatched from me, murdered. And I wish I could have had that conversation. So what I've done, I've written, and I'm now working on a movie and working on different things about his life. I'm still writing. Can I share something powerful with you, with the people watching this, with the people that are online watching this right now, and people that will come back to this? It was very, very powerful. Well, my father and I were estranged for about 34 years. He lived in the same area, 30 minutes apart from me. but we never saw each other maybe 5 or 6 times in my entire life. The powerful part that was crazy about this, and I'll say crazy from a standpoint of you wouldn't believe the irony of this, is that my father and I shared the same birth date. Can you imagine this? My father and I shared the same birthday. And guess what? My first words from my father was rejection. The first word was, "That's not my child." Right. And so
Wow.
we were estranged for 34 years, Walt. And he came back into my life when I was in school pursuing my master's. And I remember having a conversation because the way he came back into my life, he told my mom to tell me to give him a call. So I had a few choice unchristian words that were floating in my mind because I'm
Yeah.
like, you didn't even reach out to me. I have to reach out to you. But thankfully, my wife encouraged me. I had a group of people around me encouraged me to do the right thing. Call your dad. Long story short, I called him. First words, he began to apologize. I told him I forgive him, and I really forgave him. We reconciled for like 9 months. My father was a severe alcoholic, a functional alcoholic, so he can work. And then once he got that money, he was back to that addiction. Long story short is that right when we reconciled, he was murdered. He was supposed to come to see me
Oh,
around Thanksgiving time. He was murdered around Christmas Day. All right. And so what was powerful, I didn't go to the funeral. It was a lot of different things, a lot of closure that I didn't have at the time. So much was going on. And I couldn't believe it. I had just 9 months in, just talked to my dad. We were having a conversation. We were about to rebuild a relationship. We were talking as men. And I'm speaking to every man out there that we hurt too. We bleed too. And from that standpoint, I was like totally gone. Long story short, I don't have the time to tell my whole testimony, but I felt the need after 11 to 12 years to reach back out to the detectives on the case to get to the bottom of what my dad had went through. I reach out to them, Walt. This is amazing. I'm thinking they're gonna laugh me straight out of the phone, right? I'm calling them. I have a different last name. I have a mother's maiden name. I am calling the precinct 12 years later to ask about what happened to my dad to get to the bottom of his case. Long and short, I came back. There was only one individual person that was still on the case, that was still there, that was on the case. I went out to New Orleans, flew out that way, met with the gentleman, and I'm bringing this point home. When I was walking up to his grave site, well, the detective was calling the funeral home to find out where his spot was in the cemetery. And it was a dreary, cold, unusual day in January 2022. It was cold to where it was snowing in New Orleans. And anybody knows that is not typically how it is down in New Orleans. And as we were walking in that chilly day, I kept hearing him say, right here. And so we're looking and we're trying to figure out where. And I'm thinking, I'm seeing all these tombstones, Walt. I'm seeing these tombstones everywhere. And I'm thinking of my dad's name has to be on one of these tombstones. And so I'm looking, and there was different ones in between. And then he said, "Okay, I hear the detectives talk to the funeral home guy," and he's like, "Okay, right here." And I'm looking like, okay, that's not his name, not on either of these tombstones. And when he looks down, he points. He said, "Right there." And where he points is a mud pile of dirt because it's cold and rainy. And he says, "That's where your dad is buried." This is what hit me. God began to tell me, I'm a believer. So in my spirit, he said, "You see why I didn't make you a doctor of medicine? Do you see why I didn't make you an engineer? Do you see why I didn't make you a contractor because you can't build a house for your dad? Now he's gone." He said, "But what I made you is a writer. So you'll be able to tell your dad's story from the grave." And I said, wow, for men who have died where people just placed them in the dirt. And so from there, I really kind of got rejuvenated in my call and my purpose to really combine this therapeutic healing with the written process. So this is how it all came about.
now that is incredible. I I purposely didn't want to know the details. I wanted to experience this revelation along with the audience, and I am I am definitely impacted by that, as well as I think thousands of people will be, particularly men.
Yes.
And I want that was excellent narrative, and I want to segue into from that emotional testimony what your new event you have coming up is and how that's relevant in today's um, era of what I've heard some call as the uh, the orphan spirit.
Yes, powerful. One of the things that particular day changed my life. It has really changed my destiny. Like I told you, I'm working on a movie. I'm working on things for men. And also, as a man, I've been through so much. And what has inspired this next move, which is called the He Men's Conference. He Men's Conference is just that. I did it 10 years ago. And I felt like, okay, it was time to reintroduce it and to do this particular conference again and bringing men from all across the globe, bringing men together. 300 men is what we're calling. We don't need 3 million. If we can change 300, we can change 30. If we can get 3 men together, we can see the impact it'll make on our families and impact on our generations and an impact on our neighborhoods. And so being in a place where that whole event with my dad, in the mud pile that I saw, the theme of this year's conference is mud. It's an acronym. I like these acronyms: Men Under Divine Dominion, and really getting back to the place of creation. If you look at the creation story in Genesis, really from that dirt pile, really from being at the bottom, taking away every excuse from the man to say, hey, I've been through this, I've been through that. Am I relevant? We really want to bring back the relevance. We want to bring back the structure. We want to bring back the you matter. And so from that standpoint, this is going to be amazing. And we took 300 from the 300 and Gideon, 300 Spartacus, 300 men coming together to really have a holistic experience. So we're going to have a ball and just really pour into each other. And I think it's such a time as this. So that's how really this came about. And really it came about from a standpoint of me really feeling like real men feel. I would say this all the time. I used to have a podcast back in the day, Walt, called Real Men Feel. And on that show, we would bring men that will just express their emotions, just hearing people being able to share unapologetically about the way they feel and as a men. So we are really excited about that happening in September.
Awesome. So you say that's going to be in September?
September the 29th through 30th in Atlanta, Georgia. So it's going to be the 29th through 30th, 2 Power Pack days in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, and we will have the link to that information um, in September in Atlanta, GA, with Dr. Oliver T. Reid and a whole panel of experts. Just give us a little glimpse of some of the incredible brothers you're bringing to this event.
Man, we're bringing people from the military. We're going to even have, where people had to fight on the front lines in Iraq and Afghanistan, all those different things, and be a man and be a believer. All right. So we're going to be having military men there that are turned business and entrepreneurs. We're going to have people who lead praise and worship. We're going to have actually people who own Airbnbs. We're going to be talking about investments. We're going to be talking about mental health. I got counselors that's coming. We're going to be talking about people who are in life insurance, because a lot of times, man, we work all hard and do all these different things. We don't even prepare to have a segue for our own funeral, have a segue to our own estate, right? What do we want to do after that? We're also going to be able to have fitness instructor. My son is going to be coming and going to be teaching a Taekwondo exercise, right? For the man, he's a Taekwondo instructor. So we're going to be doing fitness and Taekwondo. We're going to also have people who have built networks and built things. We're going to have pastors and leaders, panel on different things. And really what I love about this event, it's going to be all men behind closed doors, an all men event. And so we got from singers to worshipers to business owners. So what I wanted to do, Walt, is bring the whole totality of what it looks like to be a man, right? And really share that on so many dynamic ways. We got authors that's going to be coming and the coaches. So we have about, I'm telling you, about 21 speakers, breakout sessions. So we'll be able to have the breakout intimate sessions as well. And definitely, man, looking for people that would, like yourself, that would come and talk about grief and overcoming it, and just really provide that power pack experience that we know that we so desperately need.
Now that sounds incredible. Again, that will be in September the 29th.
29th and 30th of
Oh, and
September,
30th in
2 days.
September in the ATL. What hotel will it be in?
Yeah, we're going to be actually at the legendary Ford Hall. It's going to be an event space that's 2 miles from the airport. We
Okay.
also have a list of hotels where you can actually get your block rate, but this is going to be at an event space. And it's right there, Hartsfield Jackson, 2 minutes away. It's called the legendary Ford Hall.
All right. It sounds like the place to be. So as we wrap this up, I don't want to make it too long. Do you have any more jewels that you can drop on the people, something for them to take with them?
Yes, I'll always say this, and you'll hear me saying this, and I know this is about walking up to my dad's grave and just also sitting at loved ones I lost during COVID, and they were skimming over their. I remember being at my cousin's funeral, and they were skimming over all the great things she was doing on the back of the obituary, and how she did this, and how she helped children, how she took people in. And I was thinking to myself, wow, where's her book? And it left me with this saying that I always tell people, and I want to drop this jewel here with you, Walt, into your audience. And I said to myself, and you should say to yourself, I would rather write my story while I'm alive than people skim over the highlights when I'm dead. I'll say that again. I would rather write my story while I'm alive, because if I can write my own story, my own account, where we get history, his story, or her story, I'd rather write that instead of the preacher preaching it, or somebody, a loved one, getting up making final remarks. You owe it to yourself to tell your untold story. Let me say this. You owe it to yourself to tell your untold story. And better yet, if you're a business owner and you are not writing about the services that you already do or the business that you do on a day-to-day basis, you are robbing yourself of revenue and new leads. So that's twofold: your life story, your memoir, and also if you are a specialist, a coach, a counselor, anybody in the service field industry, and you're not writing about what you do every day, that you have a business plan and a system already for, you are robbing yourself, right? And I will tell you this: write your story while you're alive, so that people won't have to skim over the highlights when you're dead.
Powerful. Write your story while you're alive. I think that's a beautiful place to stop. Um, I will have all of Dr. Oliver T. Reid's contact information in the descriptions of the video of the podcast. You will be able to reach out to him directly, find out about the conference in September. You will be able to reach out to me. And like I always tell you, I only bring you the best and the brightest. So, brother, Dr. Oliver T. Reid, I thank you from the bottom of my heart, man, that you took the time out to be on this podcast and reach some additional people that you may not have reached before. And I want to give you your flowers now, man. Thank you for what you do, man.
I
No
appreciate
one
you,
else
Walt.
can. No one else can bring what you are bringing. We all have greatness to bring and deliver to this world, and my brother, you are bringing it. So thank you again. I look forward to following up with you. I look forward to the conference. And people, there you have it. Real critical conversations. So as we depart, I want you to remember that where there's hope, there's healing.